Yamaha has been lying to you for decades, not with bad engineering, but with brilliant marketing wrapped around deeply flawed machines. Some of their most iconic, best-selling models, ticking time bombs, glossy magazine covers defending them. And some of their quietest models, mechanics personally own them and refuse to sell. Same brand, but completely different story. Today I'm pulling back the curtain. Let me show you 7 Yamahas that betrayed their riders. 9 that prove Yamaha can build genuine greatness. The worst one? Probably in your garage right now. Let's get into it. Number 7. The Yamaha XZ550 Vision. You want a futuristic, liquid-cooled V-twin to conquer the commuter market. But when engineers prioritize untested carburetor technology over basic reliability, you create a financial black hole. In the early 1980s, Yamaha attempted to dethrone Honda's middleweight supremacy. Their weapon was the Yamaha XZ550 Vision. It was designed to look like a spaceship and perform like a sport bike, but it became a masterclass in how not to engineer a fuel system. The tech specs reveal a machine that looked excellent on paper. It featured a 550cc liquid-cooled V-twin engine producing 64 horsepower. It transferred power through a 5-speed gearbox and a heavy-duty shaft final drive. It weighed 468 pounds fueled. The aerodynamic fuel tank held 4.5 gallons. The ergonomics were incredibly confusing. Yamaha gave it the upright seating position of a standard commuter, but placed the foot pegs aggressively rearward, like a supersport. This forced the rider into an awkward, folded-in-half posture that caused severe lower back pain after just 45 minutes of riding. But the reliability is why this motorcycle is a catastrophic failure. Yamaha utilized complex downdraft Mikuni carburetors that suffered from a terrifying off-idle flat spot. When a rider twisted the throttle to accelerate into an intersection, the engine would momentarily gasp and stall, leaving the rider stranded in the path of oncoming traffic. Furthermore, the stator, the component responsible for charging the battery, was notoriously weak and overheated constantly. The charging system failed so frequently that riders carried spare batteries in their backpacks. New prices in 1982 sat around $3,000. Today, used prices hover around $1,000, assuming the bike even runs. You avoid this unfixable relic. The Vision failed because of complex carburetors. But what happens when Yamaha attempts to reinvent front suspension geometry using heavy, expensive swing arms? Number 6 is a depreciating nightmare. Number 6, the Yamaha GTUS 1000. You demand absolute highway stability, but when a manufacturer charges a massive premium for a suspension system that nobody asked for, the market violently rejects the product. In 1993, Yamaha believed traditional telescopic front forks were technologically obsolete. They purchased the rights to the RAD forkless front suspension system and built the Yamaha GTS 1000. It was a massive, expensive sport touring flagship that completely alienated the consumer base. The tech specs highlight the sheer mass of the project. It utilized a modified 1002cc liquid-cooled inline-4 engine pulled from the FZR Superbike, detuned to produce 100 horsepower and 78 pound-feet of torque. It transferred power through a 5-speed gearbox. It weighed a massive 606 pounds fueled. The fuel tank held 5.3 gallons. The ergonomics were deeply flawed for a touring machine. Despite the massive fairings, the rider triangle was stretched out. The reach to the handlebars was uncomfortably long, placing extreme pressure on the rider's wrists. For a motorcycle designed to cross continents, it offered the comfort of a stretched-out torture rack. New prices demanded an astronomical $13,000 in 1993, far more expensive than superior Honda and BMW competitors. Used prices today sit around $4,000 for collectors. It was a financial failure that proved traditional forks work perfectly fine. The GTS 1000 failed through over-engineering, but sometimes a motorcycle fails because it is incredibly dangerous to ride off-road. The heavy scrambler at number 5 is an ergonomic disaster. Number 5, the Yamaha SCR 950. The modern scrambler market demands lightweight agility and off-road capability. But when a manufacturer takes a heavy, low-slung cruiser and simply bolts on tall handlebars, you get a compromised heavy fraud. In 2017, the retro scrambler trend was exploding. Ducati and Triumph were selling thousands of lightweight, capable scramblers. Yamaha executives panicked and wanted a piece of the market. Instead of building a bespoke scrambler, they took their heavy Yamaha Bolt Cruiser chassis, slapped a flat seat on it, and called it the Yamaha SCR 950. The tech specs define undeniable bulk. It featured an 842cc air-cooled V-twin engine, producing 51 horsepower and 59 pound-feet of torque. It transferred power through a 5-speed gearbox and a belt drive. It weighed an obese 552 pounds fueled. The fuel tank held a microscopic 3.2 gallons. The reliability of the engine is perfect, but the off-road capability is non-existent. The suspension features a pathetic 2.8 inches of rear travel. If you hit a medium-sized pothole on a dirt road, the suspension violently bottoms out, sending a kinetic shockwave straight into your spine. The heavy belt drive is completely exposed to rocks and gravel, which can easily snap the belt on a trail. New prices demanded $8,699. Used prices sit around $5,000. It is a heavy cruiser wearing a Halloween costume. Avoid it. Are you riding a compromised motorcycle that destroys your lower back? Tell me in the comments below what you ride today. And if you demand honest, analytical motorcycle breakdowns, hit that subscribe button. Let us move deeper into the disasters. Number 4, the Yamaha Virago 535. You want a lightweight entry-level cruiser, but when engineers place the fuel tank under the seat and use a starter gear design that shatters itself into pieces, you create a mechanical nightmare. In the late 1980s and 90s, Yamaha captured the beginner cruiser market with the Virago series, but the Yamaha Virago 535 represents a specific era of mechanical frustration that mechanics absolutely despise. The tech specs reveal modest intentions. It featured a 535cc air-cooled V-twin engine, producing 44 horsepower and 34 pound-feet of torque. It transferred power through a 5-speed gearbox to a shaft final drive. It weighed 430 pounds fueled. The actual fuel tank held 3.6 gallons. The ergonomics were strictly designed for riders under 5'5". If you are average height or taller, the swept-back handlebars pull your hands into your chest, while the mid-mounted foot pegs cramp your knees. It feels like riding a child's tricycle. The packaging was deeply flawed. The visual gas tank on early models was entirely fake. The real fuel tank was hidden under the seat, requiring a complex fuel pump to push gasoline up into the carburetors. The reliability is destroyed by the catastrophic starter clutch design. The Virago utilizes a Bendix-style starter gear that frequently fails to engage. When you press the starter button, the motorcycle emits a horrifying metallic box of rocks grinding sound. Fixing this starter clutch requires draining the oil, removing the left engine cover, and dealing with specialized puller tools. It fails repeatedly. Furthermore, the starter system is notoriously weak, leaving riders stranded with dead batteries. New prices hovered around $4,000 in the 90s. Used prices sit at $1,500. Let it rust in the salvage yard. The Virago is an old mistake, but in 2018, Yamaha made a modern mistake by adding an entire extra wheel to the front of a naked sport bike. Number 3 is an expensive gimmick. Number 3, the Yamaha Nikon. You want front-end grip, but when you add a massive complex linkage system and a third wheel to a sport bike, you add hundreds of pounds of weight and create the fastest depreciating asset in the industry. Yamaha engineers are obsessed with front-end stability. In 2018, they decided that 2 wheels were not enough. They took the brilliant engine from their MT-09 Street Fighter, bolted on an incredibly complex leaning multi-wheel front suspension, and created the Yamaha Nikon. It was an engineering marvel that absolutely nobody wanted to buy. The tech specs define extreme complexity. It utilizes the 847cc liquid-cooled inline triple engine, producing 115 horsepower. It transfers power through a 6-speed gearbox. But the critical metric is the weight. Because of the massive front end, It weighs an astonishing 584 pounds. The fuel tank holds 4.8 gallons. The ergonomics are standard sport touring, but the handling dynamics are bizarre. While the dual front wheels provide unbelievable traction in the rain, the extra 150 pounds of weight over the front axle completely castrates the thrilling acceleration of the CP3 engine. The bike feels heavy, sluggish, and resistant to quick directional changes. The reliability is a terrifying prospect. The front suspension utilizes two inverted forks on each front wheel, connected by a parallelogram linkage system. That means you have 4 fork seals to replace, complex steering bearings to lubricate, and 2 front tires to buy. If you crash a Nikon and bend the front linkage, the repair bill will exceed the total value of the motorcycle. Dealership mechanics despise working on them because the front end requires massive amounts of labor hours to align perfectly. New prices demanded $15,999. Used prices plummeted instantly, sitting around $8,000 today. It is a depreciating science experiment. The Nikon is a heavy gimmick, but the motorcycle at number 2 is an aggressive sport bike that literally overheated itself to death during the turbo wars of the 80s. Number 2, the Yamaha XJ650 Sika Turbo. The 1980s demanded turbochargers on everything, but when you bolt a massive lag-heavy turbocharger to an air-cooled engine, you create an unpredictable, dangerous overheating missile. During the 1980s, the Japanese Big Four entered a ruthless turbo war. Yamaha responded with the Yamaha XJ650 Sika Turbo in 1982. They wanted the performance of a 1,000cc superbike in a middleweight chassis. Instead, they delivered a motorcycle with terrifying power delivery and catastrophic thermal management. The tech specs highlight the forced induction chaos. It featured a 653cc air-cooled inline-4 engine equipped with a Mitsubishi turbocharger. It produced 90 horsepower and 60 pound-feet of torque. It transferred power through a 5-speed gearbox and a heavy shaft drive. It weighed 567 pounds fueled. The fuel tank held 5 gallons. The ergonomics were ruined by the massive aerodynamic fairing designed to channel air over the boiling engine. The fairing pushed hot engine air directly onto the rider's legs, making summer riding physically agonizing. The reliability was a lethal combination of heat and lag. The turbocharger was located beneath the engine, right behind the front wheel. Because the engine was entirely air-cooled, adding forced induction created massive internal thermal stress. New prices demanded $4,900. Used prices sit around $2,000 for brave collectors. It is a dangerous, boiling relic. Turbochargers destroyed the Sika. But the absolute worst Yamaha motorcycle ever built was a twin-cylinder machine that literally whipped its own engine oil into a destructive foam. Do not look away. Number 1 is a financial catastrophe. Number 1, the Yamaha TX750. You want a smooth, vibration-free parallel twin, but when engineers design a balancing system that froths the engine oil into a useless foam, the engine seizes and the brand reputation shatters. In 1973, Yamaha desperately needed a flagship 4-stroke motorcycle to compete with the Honda CB750. They rushed the Yamaha TX750 into production. To eliminate the harsh vibrations of a large parallel twin engine, they invented the omni-phase balancing system. It stands as the greatest engineering blunder in Yamaha's history. The tech specs read like a standard vintage machine. It featured a 743cc air-cooled parallel twin engine producing 63 horsepower. It transferred power through a 5-speed gearbox. It weighed 462 pounds dry. The fuel tank held 3.7 gallons. The ergonomics were standard for the 1970s, offering a comfortable, upright riding posture. But the reliability destroyed the motorcycle within the first 1,000 miles of ownership. The omni-phase balancing system consisted of 2 heavy counter-rotating balance shafts sitting low in the engine sump, spinning through the engine oil. At high RPMs, these massive balance shafts acted like a violent kitchen blender. They whipped the engine oil into a thick, aerated froth. The internal oil pump cannot pump foam. The aerated oil failed to lubricate the camshafts, the main bearings, and the cylinder walls. The engines overheated, seized, and exploded while owners were cruising down the highway. The exhaust pipes routinely cracked due to extreme thermal stress. New prices demanded $1,500 in 1973. Used prices sit around $1,000 today. It represents the darkest moment in Yamaha's engineering history. Yamaha has made catastrophic errors, but when they learn from their mistakes, strip away the gimmicks, and focus purely on mechanical perfection, they build the greatest motorcycles on the planet. Let us shift gears and look at the 9 best Yamahas of all time. We are crossing into legendary territory. If you have ever owned an unbreakable Yamaha, drop a comment below and tell me how many miles are on the odometer. And do not forget to subscribe so you never miss another high-octane breakdown. Let us look at the immortals. Number 9, the Yamaha TW200. You demand absolute survival. When you need a motorcycle that refuses to break down, climbs over literal mountains, and operates with the reliability of a farm tractor, you buy the Trailway. We start the best list with a machine that has remained virtually unchanged since 1987. The Yamaha TW200 is an agricultural implement disguised as a dual-sport motorcycle. It is the ultimate survival vehicle. The tech specs define unkillable simplicity. It features a 196cc air-cooled, carbureted single-cylinder engine producing 16 horsepower and 11 pound-feet of torque. It transfers power through a 5-speed gearbox. It weighs a feather-light 278 pounds fueled. The steel tank holds 1.8 gallons, yielding an off-road range approaching 100 miles. The ergonomics are perfect for shorter riders and beginners. The seat height sits at an incredibly low 31.1 inches, allowing anyone to confidently flat-foot the dirt. The reliability is legendary. The engine features a low compression ratio of 9.5 to 1, placing zero stress on the piston rings, but the true technological moat is the massive balloon tires. It features a 130 millimeter wide front tire and a massive 180 millimeter wide rear tire. These massive tires act as secondary suspension, floating over deep sand, thick mud, and jagged rocks that would sink a heavier adventure bike. New prices sit at $4,999. Used prices hold incredibly strong at $3,000. You buy it once, and your grandchildren inherit it. The TW200 survives the apocalypse. But when Yamaha decided to build a grand touring machine that could cross continents at triple-digit speeds without ever breaking a chain, they engineered a masterpiece. Number 8, the Yamaha FJR 1300. High-speed touring requires massive horsepower and zero maintenance. When the Iron Butt Association needed a weapon to cross the United States in days, they adopted the FJR. For over 2 decades, the Yamaha FJR 1300 stood as the undisputed benchmark for reliable sport touring. It represents the perfect intersection of superbike acceleration and luxury car endurance. The tech specs deliver relentless highway dominance. It utilizes a 1,298cc liquid-cooled inline-4 engine, producing 141 horsepower and 99 pound-feet of torque. It transfers power through a smooth manual gearbox and a maintenance-free shaft final drive. It weighs 642 pounds fueled. The massive fuel tank holds 6.6 gallons, providing a touring range exceeding 250 miles. The ergonomics define absolute long-distance supremacy. The upright seating position features adjustable seat height and adjustable handlebars. The thick aerodynamic fairing features an electrically adjustable windscreen that completely isolates the rider from wind fatigue and rain. The reliability is mathematically perfect. Because the massive inline-4 engine cruises at highway speeds while barely reviving, the internal components experience zero thermal stress. The shaft drive completely eliminates messy chain lubrication in hotel parking lots. Professional riders routinely clock over 200,000 miles on the original engine internals. New prices for final editions demanded $18,000. Used prices offer insane value at $5,000 for older, clean examples. It is a transcontinental missile on a budget. The FJR masters the asphalt. But when Yamaha decided to completely disrupt the middleweight naked market during a global financial recession, they engineered an engine that saved the company. Number 7, the Yamaha MT-07 FZ07. The modern motorcycle market was bloated and expensive. Yamaha stripped away the electronics, built a brilliant twin-cylinder engine, and delivered the ultimate budget street fighter. Following the 2008 financial crisis, the motorcycle industry was struggling. In 2014, Yamaha unleashed the FZ07, later renamed the MT-07. It was affordable, lightweight, and possessed an engine character that completely embarrassed the Kawasaki and Suzuki competition. The tech specs define the ultimate power-to-weight ratio. It features the legendary CP2600 89cc liquid-cooled parallel twin engine, producing 74 horsepower and 50 pound-feet of torque. It transfers power through a 6-speed gearbox. The critical metric is the weight. It weighs an incredibly light 403 pounds wet. The fuel tank holds 3.7 gallons. The ergonomics are perfectly tuned for urban combat. The narrow chassis allows riders to easily grip the tank with their knees, while the upright, wide handlebars provide massive leverage for dodging city traffic. The reliability centers on the crossplane concept engine. The CP2 utilizes a 270-degree crankshaft. This uneven firing order gives the engine the deep, throaty rumble of a V-twin and massive instant low-end torque. It is virtually unkillable, requiring only basic oil changes and spark plugs to run for 80,000 miles. It became the best-selling motorcycle in Europe because it delivers pure mechanical joy. New prices sit at $8,199. Used prices command $5,000. It is the greatest first big bike you can buy. The CP2 engine is brilliant on the street, but what happens when you take that exact same unbreakable engine, wrap it in a Dakar-inspired chassis, and drop it in the dirt? Number 6 disrupts the adventure market. Number 6, the Yamaha Tenere 700 T7. Modern adventure bikes became heavy, bloated, and overly reliant on fragile electronics. Yamaha rebelled. They built an analog dirt weapon that relies entirely on suspension and mechanical grip. When the ADV market became saturated with 600-pound, $20,000 electronic supercomputers, hardcore off-road riders begged for a lightweight, reliable alternative. Yamaha answered with the Yamaha Tenere 700. It is a pure, unadulterated rally machine that refuses to break down. The tech specs highlight off-road focus. It utilizes the proven CP2 689cc parallel twin engine from the MT-07, tuned for 72 horsepower. It transfers power through a 6-speed manual gearbox. It weighs 452 pounds fueled. The tall rally-style fuel tank holds 4.2 gallons, yielding over 200 miles of range. The ergonomics are designed specifically for aggressive off-road standing. The seat is completely flat, allowing the rider to easily shift their body weight forward over the tank to find front-wheel traction in deep sand. The foot pegs are massive and serrated. The reliability is the ultimate selling point. While European competitors use complex radar cruise control and electronic suspension, the Tenere uses fully adjustable manual KYB suspension. It lacks complex traction control modules that fail in the desert. It is an analog dirt bike that you can fix with basic tools in the middle of nowhere. New prices demand $10,799. Used prices hold incredibly strong at $8,500. It is the undisputed king of the middleweight ADV class. The Tenere rules the dirt. But back in 1985, Yamaha wanted to rule the drag strip. They built a V4 muscle cruiser that literally defined the term Widowmaker. Prepare for number 5. Number 5, the Yamaha VMAX, first generation. You want terrifying straight-line acceleration? When Yamaha shoved a massive V4 engine into a cruiser chassis and bolted on a complex intake system to dump massive fuel, they created a legend. In 1985, the muscle cruiser category did not exist. Yamaha tasked their designers to build an American-style hot rod. The result was the legendary Yamaha VMAX. It was heavy, it could not corner. The brakes were pathetic, but it accelerated so violently that it burned itself into motorcycling history. The tech specs defined brute force. It featured a 1,198 cc liquid-cooled V4 engine, producing a mind-bending 145 horsepower. It transferred power through a 5-speed gearbox and a heavy shaft drive. It weighed 600 pounds. The fuel tank, hidden under the seat, held 4 gallons. The ergonomics forced the rider into an aggressive, drag racing posture. But the reliability and performance were defined by the V-Boost system. The V-Max featured 4 downdraft carburetors. At 6,000 RPM, a servo motor opened butterfly valves connecting the intake manifolds. Suddenly, each cylinder was fed by 2 carburetors simultaneously. The resulting explosion of horsepower ripped the rear tire loose and violently threw the rider backward. The engine internals were bulletproof, utilizing massive connecting rods and thick aluminum cases. It was a mechanical monster that commanded absolute respect. New prices in the 80s sat around $5,000. Used prices today for clean original examples sit firmly at $5,000. It is an immortal piece of drag racing history. The V-Max conquered the drag strip, but when Yamaha decided to conquer the World Superbike Championship, they built an inline-4 that screamed to 16,000 RPM. Do not blink. Number 4, the Yamaha YZF-R6. This super sport class demands razor-sharp handling and stratospheric RPMs. For 2 decades, the Yamaha R6 was the absolute benchmark for track day supremacy. If you attended any track day in the world between 1999 and 2020, half the paddock was riding a Yamaha YZF-R6. It was a clinical, hyper-aggressive track weapon that refused to compromise for street comfort. It was built to win races. The tech specs highlight pure high-revving performance. The later generations utilized a 599 cc liquid-cooled inline-4 engine, producing 117 horsepower and 45 pound-feet of torque. It transferred power through a close-ratio 6-speed gearbox with a slipper clutch. It weighed an incredibly light 419 pounds wet. The aerodynamic fuel tank held 4.5 gallons. The ergonomics were brutally compromised for the street. The clip-on handlebars sat beneath the top triple clamp, and the foot pegs were aggressively high and rearward. This forced the rider into a full-tuck racing posture, making city traffic agonizing. But the reliability on the racetrack was legendary. The engine featured titanium valves and forged pistons, allowing it to scream to a jaw-dropping 16,000 RPM redline without destroying the valve train. The rigid aluminum delta box frame provided telepathic front-end feedback, allowing riders to carry massive corner speed. New prices demanded $12,199 before it was discontinued. Used prices have skyrocketed, with clean examples commanding $10,000. It is the definitive modern supersport. The R6 ruled the middleweight class. But what happens when Yamaha decides to build the ultimate, unstoppable transcontinental heavyweight adventure bike? Number 3 is a shaft-driven dreadnought. Number 3, the Yamaha Super Tenere XT1200Z. Crossing continents requires massive carrying capacity and an engine that ignores neglect. When BMW dominated the heavy ADV segment, Yamaha responded with an overbuilt, unkillable alternative. While the BMW R1200GS gets all the media attention, the smart, high-mileage global travelers quietly purchased the Yamaha Super Tenere. It was designed to be the absolute most reliable heavy adventure motorcycle ever forged by human hands. It lacks flashy screens, but it possesses an immortal mechanical soul. The tech specs define heavy-duty endurance. It utilizes a 1,199 cc liquid-cooled parallel twin engine, producing 110 horsepower and 84 pound-feet of torque. It transfers power through a maintenance-free shaft final drive. It weighs 584 pounds fueled. The massive steel fuel tank holds 6 gallons, offering over 240 miles of range. The ergonomics provide supreme long-distance comfort, featuring plush seating and massive wind protection. The reliability is the core reason it ranks this high. The engine utilizes a 270-degree crankshaft and a dry sump lubrication system. The oil tank is integrated into the engine crankcase, eliminating vulnerable external oil pans and maximizing ground clearance. The shaft drive features hypoid gears sealed in heavy oil, requiring zero attention across thousands of miles of dirt roads. Mechanics routinely service Super Teneres with over 150,000 miles on the original engine internals. New prices demanded $16,000. Used prices offer insane value at $7,000. It is the ultimate Overland survival tool. The Super Tenere survives the apocalypse. But when Yamaha brought MOTOGP technology to the street, they created the greatest sounding superbike in human history. Prepare yourself for number 2. Number 2, the Yamaha YZF-R1 Crossplane Generation. You want superbike horsepower, but inline-4 engines feel clinical and lack soul. Yamaha changed the entire industry by dropping their Rossi-developed MotoGP crankshaft into a production street bike. In 2009, Yamaha fundamentally changed superbike engineering. The Yamaha YZF-R1 introduced the CP4 cross-plane crankshaft to the consumer market. It produced an exhaust note that sounded like an American V8 engine and delivered traction-finding torque that completely embarrassed the Kawasaki and Honda competition. The tech specs define exotic engineering. It utilizes a 998cc liquid-cooled inline-4 engine, producing 197 horsepower in later generations and 83 pound-feet of torque. It weighs 447 pounds wet. The aluminum tank holds 4.5 gallons. The ergonomics are strictly focused on track day lap times, pushing the rider's weight over the front wheel. The reliability is anchored in the massive structural rigidity of the engine cases required to support the crossplane crank. Because the pistons stop and start at different intervals, it completely eliminates inertial torque. The rear tire never receives harsh, sudden spikes of horsepower. The rider feels a direct, linear connection between the throttle grip and the rear tire contact patch. New prices demanded $18,000. Used prices hold incredibly strong at $13,000 for modern iterations. It provides MotoGP technology with Japanese reliability. The R1 is an asphalt scalpel, but the absolute best Yamaha motorcycle on the market today took the hooligan street fighter concept and perfected it. The machine at number 1 is an absolute masterpiece of torque and agility. Number 1, the Yamaha MT-09. We have reached the summit. The number 1 greatest, most thrilling Yamaha motorcycle on the market today is the 3rd and 4th generation Yamaha MT-09. Yamaha took the naked street fighter category, injected it with the greatest engine of the modern era, and wrapped it in a chassis that begs you to misbehave. The tech specs define the ultimate street weapon. It utilizes the legendary CP3800 90cc liquid, cooled inline triple engine. It produces 117 horsepower and 69 pound-feet of torque. The ergonomics provide the ultimate commanding posture. The upright, wide tubular handlebars give the rider immense leverage to throw the lightweight chassis into tight corners, while the slightly rear-set foot pegs allow for aggressive body positioning. The reliability is immaculate. The CP3 engine provides the low-end grunt of a V-twin combined with the high-revving horsepower rush of an inline-4. New prices sit at an incredibly reasonable $10,500. Used prices command $8,000. It provides superbike thrills, commuting comfort, and unmatched reliability in one perfect package. It is the ultimate Yamaha. Click on the next video in order to keep the ride going. Subscribe to our channel and don't forget to hit the like button.